One, it's Wacky Animotive here to present you with What If Deku made a deal with Bill Cipher at the finale. Let's go ahead and get into it. As Izuku stares down Bakugo, who is beaten and bloody beyond recognition, and left near a land full of hot, scorching gravel, as it was in Bill's dimension, he immediately walks towards him and picks him up by the face and whispers in his ear, "Don't worry, it can only get much worse from here." With no warning, he grabs Bakugo's right hand and tears it off, causing Bakugo to want to scream, but the hand over his face won't allow the scream to go out. As the hand over his face tightens and feels like it's crushing his skull, Bakugo can see Izuku holding his right arm and holding it towards his face with a smile. He says, "Need a hand, Katsuki?" Before Bakugo can do anything, he throws the hand into the lava in the hot scorching side of Bill's dimension, causing it to burn up, and Bakugo sees what happened. He looks at Izuku as if he was a monster for a second until Izuku looks at him with his smile still plastered on his face as he says, "Guess you didn't need a hand after all. How about we get you fixed up?" He says as he starts to float a bit over the ground, moving into the more scorching side of the dimension. He aims Bakugo's left side, where his remaining arm is still there, but then flips him over to his right side, where his arm is missing, and immediately kicks him into the ground as his right side is getting cauterized where the arm was, and causing 4-degree burns on his right side, as his torso ends up having these 4-degree burns spreading across his body, until all of a sudden Izuku stares at Bakugo's body and hears more of his screams. He starts to want to record them, so he pulls out his phone while still keeping his foot positioned on Bakugo's right side downwards. With so much force, it caused his right side to dive directly into the scorching ground, including his face that he barely was keeping off the ground, causing him to have 4-degree burns on the right side of his face. He looked a bit upwards to see Izuku smiling, pointing his phone at him, recording his screams and misery. Bakugo tries to flail his right side up to get Izuku's foot off of him so he can get up, but cannot do so because when he tries, the foot presses harder and harder, causing him to get burned more and scream until he could no longer voice out another scream, and just stares up at Izuku, who is staring into his eyes as well with a gleeful expression on his face, causing Bakugo to think this could have been avoided if I just treated him a little better. That was the last thing he could think as Izuku got bored and lifted his leg up and stomped his leg downwards onto Bakugo's head, so hard it exploded like a watermelon being hit by a sledgehammer. As Izuku looks down at Bakugo's burned and headless corpse, he feels a few emotions. One is happiness about the situation, him being dead, some boredom and a little empty, and regretful. As he starts to feel a pang of regret, he thinks back to the bullying, where he would get beaten by Bakugo so bad his ribs were healed incorrectly and nearly punctured his lungs twice, nearly killing him twice. He starts to think he deserved this as he flew away from Bakugo's corpse and right into the sky towards the rift. As he enters, he sees that now there's a giant pyramid and tons of eye bats flying around with laser sharks destroying random buildings, and a giant baby with 3 guns shooting up everyone. As he sees this, he immediately flies towards the pyramid, not batting an eye towards it any longer, and proceeds to enter. He hears Bill talking with some people, so he decides to hide on a wall and peer into the room where he's talking to his friends. As he does, he hears Bill say, "So it turns out that Japan itself is like Gravity Falls. and we cannot leave it, so we cannot party anywhere else. Let's not panic, though. Izuku notices a skeleton with 5 eyeballs in its forehead trying to say something, but Bill says, "Do you hear that?" As he says that, Izuku gets a little worried. He was found out snooping, but is relieved when the skeleton creature says, "I don't hear anything." Before he can say any more, Bill snaps his fingers, and the skeleton starts to fade away very slowly. As it looks at everyone in the room as he begins to say, "I don't feel so good, Mr. Cipher." As he says this, Cipher looks directly at him, and then he looks at his watch he has on his wrist and thinks in his head, "It's never took this long to disintegrate someone before. Did I get weaker or something? Why am I trying to look at my watch? Time doesn't even matter here." As he is thinking in his head, the skeleton creature still is panicking while slowly fading away, until Bill snaps his fingers and he bursts into flames. As Bill says, "Sorry that took way longer than anyone was expecting. It also looks like we have another problem, though. It seems we cannot get near UA. There's some sort of force field preventing me or any of you from getting in. Also, I have no idea how, but Ford tracked me down here, so we may have a chance. If I can get in his mind, this time we can leave Japan and explore the world." As he finishes what he was saying, he starts to laugh, and Izuku was then about to leave, but not before hearing Bill talk to a giant squirrel named Craig. Craig immediately looks at Bill and says, "Hey Bill, want Bofa?" As he says this, Izuku can tell Bill won't fall for this, until he hears Bill say, "Hold up, I was so busy laughing. What did you say you wanted to give me?" Bill then sees the giant squirrel, Craig, some as he says, "I want to give you both of these nuts." Bill immediately looks at Craig, who pulls out 2 giant walnuts and a nutcracker, and says, "See?" As Izuku has seen enough, he leaves the pyramid and heads to UA while thinking, maybe if there was a barrier, would it still repel me? I unfortunately still am part human currently. Well, let's find out. As Izuku makes it towards UA, Bill says another important announcement towards his friends, one that could end or more precisely, his reign over this world. POV UA Nezu. As I am in UA drinking tea with Ford across from me, drinking coffee, as I ask him an important question. We already believe you about what you said about Bill, but one question you didn't answer, how the fuck did you get in my office? Ford immediately replies while holding up a strange-looking gun, "I used a portal gun to get to your world. You see, when me, Stan, and the kids from my world beat Bill, I was a little suspicious if he may have escaped. So I made a device to detect any weird anomalies. And lo and behold, your world has the exact readings as gravity falls during Wordgeddon. Except worse, since you have no means to stop him. But it seems something or someone is keeping Bill and the rest of them anchored here. If you were to destroy the anchor, they would be dragged back into their dimension, and Bill would be gone, or at least for now." As Ford says this, Nezu immediately thinks towards someone peculiar. Nezu immediately stares towards Ford and says, "I think I know who he's anchored to. It's a boy known as Izuku Midoriya, who after Aizawa told me about him, I looked into his past a little bit more. It's quite dark. In his dark past, he had more than 80% of his body full of burn scars from many explosions, numerous broken bones, or mishealed bones, which, when he went to the hospital, they denied him any access to any of the medical facility and would not treat him. He had almost non-existent pain sensors, and mostly ignored or beat him if he ever tried to ask for help for anyone anything or from anyone, or even just talking to them. Immediately, both Ford and Nezu hear a third voice, which that will never happen again. As Nezu and Ford hear that voice, they see Izuku floating outside Nezu's office, just staring at him with a creepy grin. As Ford grabs Nezu and pushes himself and Nezu down, as Izuku fires red and green flames into the room, causing a massive explosion to erupt, dragging both heroes and civilians who are inside UA's attention as they crowd outside to see the destroyed principal's office adorned by flames and Izuku floating beside it with a dark red glint in his eyes as he charges up another flame attack as he notices Ford's body over Nezu with a force field protecting them. Izuku immediately, before hurtling the flames, stares at everyone looking at him, trying to kill Nezu and the others, and says, "Enjoy the a moment, because it will be the last moment you all have on Earth." As he says this, he hurls his flames at Ford's force field at full force, expecting it to break, but instead it expands, and Ford stands up with Nezu on his shoulder and looks Izuku in the eyes and says, "You can stop now. This force field I made can turn any flames into energy to expand it. It will only hurt demons, or in your case, half demons." As he finishes what he was about to say, he snaps his fingers and the force field disappears, and he pulls out of his coat a futuristic gun, which he fires at Izuku, who dodges it while in mid-air to the right, but didn't expect the bullet to curve around and come back from behind him, piercing his left shoulder, causing him immense pain, but he looks unfazed as he stares at Ford and throws a ball of flame directly at him, while Ford just calmly pulls out a portal gun and fires below him, and him and Nezu go through, avoiding the flame completely, while Izuku tries to track them, only to notice a portal above him, and Ford falls down in front of him with his bullet-tracing gun aimed in his face. Izuku for once looked quite panicked until he quickly grabbed his gun and turned it towards him. But before he could fire, Ford used a portal gun and shot towards the ground under Izuku, causing a portal to appear. And then quickly, at the same time as Izuku, shot towards each other. But Ford's bullet was a little bit faster, causing one portal to be in front of Izuku, who shot a bullet towards the opening of the portal, causing Izuku's bullet to appear out of the ground beneath him and curved to him, hitting into his legs, which he intended to hit Ford at, so he could get him to where he's very much defenseless, so Bill could get the information he needed. Immediately, the bullet went through Izuku's right leg and pierced his left one, and getting stuck into it. Izuku's face was still unfazed, as though it never happened. As he sees Ford and Nezu slowly descending to the ground, he flies towards them as fast as possible and disappears as he was in front of their faces, only to appear behind Ford, kicking him in the back, holding back very little while doing so, causing the barrier Ford put up at the last second to crack a little as he was blown out of UA. Izuku was about to fly past to them, but all of a sudden, he was being flung to the side of UA by All Might himself, who had struck Izuku with 75% of One for All, and dashed towards Izuku, who had stopped himself from being flung any further by the shock waves of All Might's punch by stopping himself in midair as he was finally gonna hit the UA ground, which he had also noticed ahead of time had been messed with and has been weakening his powers quite a bit, actually, as he noticed glyphs everywhere. Some sort of glyphs were all over the ground. He knew he couldn't hit the ground at any instance. But as he started to realize that, he remembered he was still in a fight, as he looked to the direction of All Might, only to see that he was directly in front of him, about to deliver a barrage of punches at around 80% now. Izuku sees every punch he throws. As he throws a left, he dodges right. As he throws a right, he dodges left. To Izuku, the punches were strong but very slow, but to everyone else, it looked like All Might broke the sound barrier and Izuku just dodged them nonchalantly at an extreme pace, and retaliated by uppercutting All Might into the sky and flying in front of him and punching him so hard in the gut he vomits out blood. And there is a little shockwave behind him, behind his body, as Izuku continues to attack All Might. He appears behind him and slams his left leg directly into his back, causing it to make a loud noise as if it broke, and he slammed All Might towards the ground. Izuku notices that a black whip was wrapped around his waist and saw at the last second, as All Might was falling on both hands, black whip was on him, was on All Might. As it came out of him, he slammed them both onto the ground as he was falling, and Izuku came falling with him right after, causing him to land on his back and blood to pour out of Izuku's mouth. As All Might landed downwards, as this was happening, his body bounced directly upwards from the impact, a bit to be sent crashing right back down as All Might landed right on top of him, causing blood to pour out of Izuku's mouth, and eyes even more so out of his ears, as All Might was standing on Izuku's gut, full weight down on him. He says, "Your powers will no longer work since you touched UA ground, where the symbols were placed by Ford. I am sorry, but you're too dangerous to let live. If killing you and stopping this horrible event from continuing means I am no longer a hero, so be it." As he says this, he puts more weight on Izuku after every word, and Izuku starts to do the oddest thing. He starts to laugh a little bit until it erupts into loud laughter, until All Might steps off of him, grabs him by the neck, and lifts him off the ground and says, "Do you think that what you have done is funny, huh? You killed millions by helping Bill Cipher in his plans." As he says this, Izuku looks him in the eyes and has a smile of pure insanity, as his laughs only intensify, as All Might had enough of this, and reels back his free hand into a fist and mutters one sorry towards him, until Izuku's left hand moves upwards and forms into an uppercut, and slams into the bottom of All Might's jaw, causing his head to explode, and his body falls downwards onto the ground. Izuku just floats over it and stares at everyone's faces and says, "Hey everyone, why so serious?" he says with a smile as he floats higher above them. He puts his hands out and flames come pouring out, but they're different from before. The flames are now green and black as they start to flood all over the inside of UA, on the outside as well. As Izuku just smiles, he knows what he is doing is wrong, but it feels so right. He even sees a giant marshmallow holding a group of women, men, and kids, like All Might would have. While running towards the UA gates, Izuku couldn't help but burn it, so he slowly burned behind the Marshmallow Man. POV Marshmallow Man Phil, as Phil, now known as the Marshmallow Guy, noticed the black and green flames rushing towards everyone, even kids, burning them alive. He could have ran out of UA by himself, and he would for sure survive, but he refuses to let people die. So he grabs as many people as possible, kids, women, and men, and holds them all into a giant hug while running to the UA exit gates. With as many people as possible, he starts to think on when he was in this world and posed as a receptionist at a hospital. He saw so many lives extinguished, so he swore that day he would save them, as many humans and people as possible. He thinks while running, and the flames start to catch up to him and burn the back of his legs. He feels an intense pain, but continues until it gets gradually worse as his back starts to burn, but he doesn't look back, just looks at the people he has in his hug as he spots a little girl crying, holding what he assumes is the little girl's mom, as they are holding each other in his hug as he's carrying them. He immediately says, "Why are you crying, little one?" He says as he tries to distract himself from the pain as he proceeds to run and feels the burning sensation over over the back of his body. The little girl responds, "Mr. Marshmallow, are you gonna die like Dad did and everyone else me and Mom cared for?" Immediately Phil starts to feel as if his back is melting as he feels shorter and his legs feel goopier. He continues running and shielding the people, but nonetheless, he answers the girl's question. "They may not be here with you, but they will always be in your heart, kid, and watching over you every step of the way." The kid immediately responds, like Santa. Philip, even though he was in an intense amount of pain and knows he won't make it, he smiles and says, "Like Santa Claus, kid, like Santa." As he says this, he makes it towards the UA gates and lets the people go and run towards the gate, but feels everything around is hotter as he turns his head behind him a little to peek over. He sees Izuku charging up more flames directly towards the humans and him at the gate. So he faces his back towards Izuku and takes the flames full brunt force. As the humans witness this, they all flee, including the mom and the little girl, who is being carried, and facing Phil as she screams, "Marshmallow Man, please don't go." As Philip hears this, he tells her something she takes to heart, as he is extremely injured and most of the front of his body is barely keeping together, as the back of his body is nothing but goop. "It's okay. It's just my time to go, and I accept it. Stay safe, kiddo." As he says this, some flames finally get through the front of his body, where a normal person's heart would be. It pierced through. As Phil sees the last people he saved retreating, he smiles before being flung by Izuku into UA, where his flames are burning everything around. He floats in front of Phil and says, "Why did you save those meat bags? You could have lived if you didn't. If not for a few seconds more." Phil responds as his body is being less defined and more mushy. "It's because they have people who care for others. They have people who they love and want to protect, not just destroy. I won't let you get away with this." As he says this, Izuku says, "Oh really, a melted marshmallow won't let me get away with this. What are you gonna do, huh? I'm just shaking in my boots right now." As he places both hands in front of him and waves them in the air. As Izuku provokes Phil notices someone behind Izuku. As Izuku sees Phil looking behind him, it was too late, as a reinforced scarf wrapped around him and slammed him onto the ground, causing his powers to stop, and Izuku to look behind him to see a furious Aizawa, who says, "If all I have to do is sacrifice my life to kill you, to end this all, I will do it. Nezu Nurami will understand, I hope." As Aizawa says this, he looks through his pocket and gets out his phone and sends his wife a goodbye message. As he walks towards Izuku and tightens the scarf around him, he notices a goopy-like substance pushed him away from Izuku and undid his scarf, as it then pinned Izuku down, leaving his face stuck directly into the ground. As Aizawa looks up a little bit, as he sees Phil, the giant marshmallow he heard about from a kid and mom he passed earlier. On the way here, he noticed the Marshmallow Man is more than half melted, but the goop is surrounding Izuku and burning on him. As the marshmallow guy says to Aizawa, I suggest that you leave and go to your wife. Make the most you may have. Lost your daughter in this disaster, but the last thing she would want is for you to lose each other. Now go. As Aizawa hears the marshmallow man out as it is smiling at him as he started to be already melted enough to where he died, directly on top of Izuku, keeping him stuck to the ground as flames surrounded him and burned him. He realized he is right. What was I doing? He runs towards the UA gates and exits and sees the destroyed remains of Japan, but sees that the rift in the sky is dragging all the creatures Bill brought right back into the gate, and it is starting to close. As he thinks it finally ended, he sees in the sky Bill Cipher shooting laser beams, flames, and everything he can at the barrier of UA, which had began to block him because of Ford. As the glyphs were blocking him and Bill was getting more frustrated, he was slowly starting to disappear. Aizawa then sees him stop and float higher into the air. POV Bill, no, not again, Bill thinks, as he has a realization of he just can't rule this world. He will end as much of it as possible. As he currently can, as he charges what little amount of strength he has left. He charges thousands of little laser beams into the sky, as everyone who was cheering looked up only to see laser beams of death raining up from above them, shooting through buildings, knocking them on top of thousands of people, or directly disintegrating them, until he finally fades away. POV, time skip. Everything is finally okay again, and Ford left back to his original dimension, after probably giving Nezu more plans on how to conquer the world. Aizawa and Nemeru ended up having a kid 1 year later after Ford left, and there's now a Marshmallow Man statue at UA. All things considered, things are looking quite up. POV Izuku, currently unfalling from the sky, which after I looked up apparently is a pentagram. As I hit the concrete and expected to go splat, I didn't, but I did see a world of chaos, and it is beautiful. But I also see these creepy winged monster creatures, slaughtering people. I say out loud, I don't know where I am, but it's gonna be a hell of a time. As Izuku says this, he hears from behind him, yes, it will be, but I hope you can stay tuned for it. And that's the finale. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure you smash that like button.